Hey everybody, this is Emar Sopertu. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're broadcasting on January 19th, 2021. Man, a lot going on in the world today. I will admit, well, I keep saying I don't get political, but the past few episodes I've really expressed some of my thoughts on things going on, starting with the Capitol riots from a few weeks ago and everything like that. But it is unavoidable to acknowledge that by the time you hear this show, a good amount of you, or the next time I do a Sports Inquirer show, give or take a few hours, we're going to have a new president of the United States, and you only get to see that maybe in a lifetime if you're lucky, maybe three, four times, maybe five or six if you're really fortunate. So it's very interesting to see that going on, and I mean a lot of craziness is going on in the world, and whatever your political beliefs are, for or against, and not to break down, but it still is a unique situation that we have going on. As I said, by the time you listen to this show, it may have happened already with the transfer of power from President Trump to President Biden and everything going on with that. So I've really been intrigued by that and listening to the news and reading certain articles and just seeing how this is all going to go. So we're recording this actually in the early or late morning, kind of early afternoonish on the 19th. If I do another show, probably be around this time, maybe a little later or earlier, depending on how my schedule goes with everything going on the 20th. But most likely, if you're listening to this right now, it's either we have last day of Trump or first day of Biden. So it's a very unique deal going on there. So it is a historical moment that should be acknowledged and appreciated. And how does it tie to sports? A lot of it ties to sports, and we won't go down that rabbit hole yet, or not at least this episode. But just very, just I just thought about that. So I'm following. I was in the store and getting walking around and doing all that stuff, and I thought about that, and I was like, wow, that's a really unique situation we have going on right now as I'm recording this. So interesting stuff. But as always, you want to follow on today's show. I go over that. It's all football heavy, as you would expect. We haven't done a recap of the divisional round of the NFL playoffs yet. We're going to break down all those four contests that took place this past weekend. We've also had some new coaching hires since our last show. So I have to break down and go over all of those as well. Atlanta, Los Angeles, the Chargers, and the Lions have new head coaches, and I have some thoughts on that. The Miscellaneous Department, I may dabble into the English Premier League and also the NBA and other notes in sports as we feel fit. But as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, you know the drill. Go to our go to our site, thesportsinquirer.net. I call it the mothership for a reason because that's where everything funnels into. If you go to that site, that's where you'll get all the items that we need. I tried something new today as well. I call it the morning antics, and I just woke up in the morning. Actually, I was running some errands and I came back and wanted to talk about what's going on in the sports world, and for about 4 or 5 minutes. And I tried it out. We'll see how it's received. It's really a condensed version of really what you're going to hear on the Inquirer show and some of our other podcasts and other platforms. But I just wanted, and I might do evening shenanigans or kind of workshopping some different names for some evening stuff. But I think it's important that you hear from me, or that we get interaction going at least once a day, even if we don't do a full Inquirer show like you're listening to right now. So I tried that. We'll see how it goes, and then that was kind of different, very interesting. You get to see me early in the morning, and that's the visual is interesting. You see me doing the Zoom calls and the video interviews in that regard, but you got all of me or solo me today in the morning, and we'll see how that goes as far as the format and how that look goes. But if you go to the site, you'll see morning antics, and also you go to our YouTube page and our Instagram page. I think we have those on there as far as the morning antics. And as I said, Twitter and Instagram. If you want to see the antics, go to Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. And also on Facebook, you go to the Sports Inquirer, go to our page on there, and you'll be able to check it out. And then finally, you can subscribe to our audio options on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcast, and iTunes. and you search the Sports Inquirer, and that is a great way to check out everything we have going on there. All right, let's get right to the show. The Gridiron Blitz and the NFL playoff thoughts. I think all of you know the result. I'll go over the results and everything that happened, and I'll give one or two highlights or thoughts on each contest. We'll start with the Cleveland Kansas City game. The Chiefs were able to emerge with a 22-17 victory over the Browns. Several thoughts on this. We got to start with Pat Mahomes. Third quarter, he was running an option play. He kept the ball and was hit by a Browns defender, suffered a concussion, left the contest, did not return. Chad Henne came in as the backup quarterback, had several big runs, several turnovers as well, especially that interception in the end zone. But the highlight that we're looking at is when Kansas City was up and trying to preserve the win, 4th-and-1. Andy Reid, the offensive coordinator, head coach of the Chiefs, calls the rollout play. Obviously, the completion to Tyreek Hill to preserve the victory for Kansas City. I look at it from the Chiefs side of things. I think the Chiefs played very well. Those concerned about them being sluggish with not really playing a competitive contest over the past weeks. They had the bye, obviously, in the first round of the playoffs, and then the regular season finale. They really didn't play too many of their major guys or limited minutes or snaps for those players, including Pat Mahomes. So you're looking at possibly 2 weeks of rustiness going into the contest. We didn't see that too much. But the Mahomes thing was very intriguing. I know that Reid has Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, and we're going to touch on him a little bit more extensively when we get to the coaching hirings later on in this segment. There's a lot of confidence in Mahomes, and the thing I don't like what I've been hearing is that confidence in his legs. He can run the ball. Yet we all the talk of being an athletic quarterback, being able to run and pass the ball. And obviously Lamar Jackson had a big influence on that. Josh Allen. These are guys who are rushed for double-digit touchdowns in a season, have really brought the running aspect of the quarterback position in a highlighted way. But you make your money and you make your significance, especially when Pat Mahomes throwing the ball. And I've seen too often this year, especially on third downs, that Mahomes, and to be fair, the defenses are playing back in zones. If it's 3rd-and-7, 3rd-and-8, a lot of defenses against Kansas City are not allowing for that deep ball, or either down the seam or within a zone options with Kelsey in the middle, or not allowing Tyreek Hill to go on deep routes and Hartman as well. I get all that stuff. But I'm seeing Mahomes run the ball way too much this year, and he's very athletic, and he's able to convert a large amount of first downs. But I don't like these option plays where you put yourself, Mahomes, outside of the pocket in a running situation. And look, he can get hurt throwing a screen pass or throwing a quick, 3 or 5 step drop, and he can get hurt, get hit in the legs, get hit in any part of the body. I get all of that, but I think it's less likely for him to get hurt in that way than him doing rollouts. Now the concussion, that was just an awkward way that he fell. It was kind of like I don't know if any of you are wrestling fans, professional wrestling, but that's like a bulldog where you grab a guy, he's bent over you grab him around the neck, and you kind of run and you push his face down. And that's called a bulldog. Different variations of it. Listen to my wrestling podcast, which we might record over the next day or two. Verbal submission. I'll give a good rundown of the bulldog for you. But in essence, his head was thrown to the ground and his neck was cranked a little bit. So it was a different angle than he was sit than normal. And obviously, he got hit, and you saw him not struggling to get up and look woozy, and you knew he wasn't going to play the rest of the game. I know Andy Reid was saying that, Mahomes is fine and all that other stuff. Look, the NFL is they're in a spotlight with concussion and protocols, and you have your best player in the league and your most known player, one of your most known players outside of Brady and maybe Aaron Rodgers. Mahomes is the most known player in the NFL, and rightfully so. So you're not going to have that high profile of a guy. Not to say that the backup offensive lineman is not going to get the same treatment, but definitely when Mahomes is out there and looks like he's struggling to walk and looks woozy, he's not coming back into the contest. But I think that the Chiefs can avoid those type of situations by treating Mahomes in a better way. Now, Warren Sapp, who is a fun follow on Twitter, said that they would not call that play for a white quarterback, or if Mahomes was. They've been saying that since Mahomes is black, they call these run options and reads, but if he was white, they wouldn't call it. I'm not going to go that far, but I think that they just have to manage him in a better way as far as handling him with kid gloves. And you have to, because he is the franchise. And I said he's a top player in the league, or one of the top players, one of the most high profile known guys. And you have him running that type of play, just not very smart. But I also have to look at the Brown side of things. If you're in that situation, you're down one possession, and you have Chad Henne in there as a backup, you have to win that game if you're the Browns. And look, the Browns accomplished a lot this year. 11 wins in the regular season, first time in the playoffs in 20 years, first playoff win in about 25 years. I get all of that, and like Baker Mayfield has made strides to being a solid quarterback to borderline very good quarterback. But you have to win that contest if you're the Browns. And there were several opportunities when the Browns had subsequent possessions where you saw Mayfield make some bad throws and just not make good completions. When you saw that the Chiefs are like, we're just going to blitz them. We're not going to allow Chubb and the other running backs to get off and have good situations for the Browns. We're going to put the ball in Mayfield's hand and see what he can do. And he underdelivered in that second half of the game, I think. And you look at the numbers and like, oh, yeah, an okay contest. But no, if you have that type of situation where, I don't care if you're on the road, you have to find a way to win that contest. And will he win that game in the future? Possibly. But I think you really have to temper your optimism for him as far as him being a franchise guy. And you have to look at him in that light. He was number one overall pick. Remember, in that same draft, you had Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson's won an MVP already in the regular season and has made some significant moves. Josh Allen is an MVP candidate this year. Where's Mayfield in that scenario? I don't think he really adds a lot to it. But I said, if you're going to be a franchise that wants to take that next step, you have to win that contest. Now, Kansas City is going to face Buffalo, who defeated Baltimore 17-3. I think Buffalo, we've looked so much. Well, several things. We'll start with Buffalo, and then we'll get to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I don't think I can remember a contest where, and I'm going to pull up the stats right now, where you have a guy. Actually, no, it was a little better than I thought. Uh, I thought Josh Allen. I thought balance was a lot better than I thought it was. No, actually, it's about what I thought. Yeah, because I'm looking at the wrong thing. Josh Allen, 37 passing attempts. The Bills, as an entire offense in windy conditions, only rushed the ball 16 total times. So you had a almost 2.5 to 1 ratio of passes to runs in that situation with Josh Allen, who I know the accuracy, he's improved that in a major way. But those play calling options was very intriguing in that regard. He did enough to win in that contest. Stephon Diggs, who has been a big time savior or life preserver for Josh Allen, and I think that's the biggest thing you saw from Allen, go from a guy who was maybe top 15, 20 quarterback in the NFL to maybe a arguably top 5 guy, has been the addition of Diggs. And that's been really good. But for Baltimore, and look, if you look at Lamar Jackson, you have to question where they're going as a franchise. Yes, they won their first playoff game with Lamar Jackson last week or 2 weeks ago against Tennessee. That was a good win, but they were not very impressive in that contest. And then I looked at this game overall, 162 passing yards for Jackson, He rushed for 34, had that big interception that was returned for 100 yards for a touchdown. That was the end of the game right there. And once that pick six for 100 yards, that Lamar Jackson, once again, forcing the ball to Andrews, the tight end, down the middle. The Bills sniffed it out, and were able to return it for a score. That was really the conclusion of that contest for Buffalo. And Buffalo and Kansas City will have plenty of time to analyze that contest. But defensively, I mean, Buffalo really showed up, and their defense played really well against the Ravens. But I think that I don't know if Lamar Jackson, at this current rate of how he's performing, is going to be able to win a championship, let alone appear in a Super Bowl with this current offense. And do they need more offensive weapons? Sure. It'd be better a number one receiver besides Hollywood Brown. Sure, that'd be great. We'd all love to. I think most teams would love to have that scenario. Well, would they like to maybe get better running backs? I know Dobbins, excuse me, has been a nice revelation for them, but maybe they need more there. Would a change in Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, who does really well with producing a rushing attack, but really struggles to develop the passing aspect of a quarterback. Saw him in San Francisco struggle with that with Colin Kaepernick. No, non-politics aside, when they started off really well for Kaepernick in San Francisco, and then he regressed. Even before all of the off the field stuff started coming into play, there was regression, and that was under Roman's watch. So, do they fire the coordinator and bring in another guy? I mean, that's always possible. But I think Jackson has to improve his passing game. And when I say improve his passing game, you say, well, last year he threw the most touchdowns in the NFL. He threw most of for all quarterbacks, more than Brady, more than Rodgers, more than Mahomes. I mean, so it's not like he led the league in passing touchdowns. So it's not like he can't throw the ball. But when the playoffs come around and your defenses are better, and you can't pick on the Bengals so much or pick on the inferior opponents, that's where he starts to struggle. And as I said, and I would say he's a young guy. I mean, he's going to be entering year 4 coming up. But the way he plays and he runs so much, we saw it with Mahomes, a guy who's just running a 1-yard option and got concussed, and you never know what could happen there. Same thing happened to Jackson. Runs the ball a lot more and puts himself in worse positions than Mahomes ever does. And I'm really concerned about their future and their lack of passing efficiency in the postseason is troubling if you're a Ravens fan. And so you have to be concerned about that if you're a fan of Baltimore. Green Bay defeated the Rams 32-18. When you give the Packers an extra week off and you give Rodgers just more time to run, 296 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, passer rating of 108. That's bad if you're a defense. You throw in the rushing, Aaron Jones, Dylan, Williams, all those guys rush and combined to rush for close to 150 yards. Actually, how about 160 yards rushing? If you give a few hundred yards passing and 150, 60 yards rushing to the Packers, you're not going to win that contest. Jared Goff could have gone and had a career game, and they probably weren't going to win that contest. And we knew Goff would be compromised with his thumb. And look, if you're a pro athlete, if you're out there playing, no excuses. I get all of that. And same with Aaron Donald when he's dealing with a stomach injury or I don't know if he bruised his ribs or tore cartilage in his ass. So he's dealing with a midsection injury. So the best defensive player in the league is when he's hobbled. That's gonna be very bad. You struggle to get a pass rush against Aaron Rodgers. When you have that guy not 100%, that's an even bigger problem. So I knew that the Rams were going to be in a very tough spot. And when I look at the Packers, it's just a comfort level of that offense. You look at Rodgers post game, not one grass stain on him. He looked very relaxed, very poised. You see him walk up to the line of scrimmage. He's just going. It's like in slow motion. it just reminds me of when I would watch Joe Montana in the late 80s with the 49ers. They played the Giants quite a bit. And that's when I really started following football around 88, 89. I was about 7, 8 years old. I can kind of comprehend A from B and B from C. And you would just see Montana, Joe Cool. He just walk up to the line of scrimmage, look around, make a call, go back a few steps, and just throw the ball like he's throwing it in the middle of the park on a Sunday afternoon. Rodgers has that comfort level with this offense. He just knows where he can go on every single play. And if you press up, he can go deep to Adams. If you play zone, he's going to throw it short to Tonson and get a lot of yards there. Lazard, 94 receiving yards and a touchdown. He's emerged as a nice third option there. And then if you add in the rushing tech, Aaron Jones and then Dillon, who all-time leading rusher at Boston College through his career, rookie running back, kind of unsung. We focused so much on Jordan Love, the first-round pick of the Packers at quarterback, and obviously all the controversy that caused. You draft a quarterback when you have Aaron Rodgers on the same team. We talk about all that stuff. But that second-round pick of Dillon was very significant because it gave him depth in that running back position. And Dillon's 6 foot, 250 pounds, a bruiser, can convert first downs for you. He's been a really big part of that offense as well. They don't put up as many. When we look at Kansas City and they have the flashy guys on the outside and Kelsey inside. Buffalo statistically has the best offense this year as well, one of the top 2 or 3 when we talk about Josh Allen's evolution. But Green Bay, I think just because they're so used to Aaron Rodgers and he's going to win an MVP, regular season MVP for another time in his career. We're so used to him being so good. While I was watching that Rams contest, it just reminds you how easy it looks. It's not easy. It's very hard. But I just don't see a team. And Tampa, we'll get to the Bucks in a minute. I mean, they have some strong aspects on their defense. I just don't see how the Bucks are going to keep them under 30. And that's where it's just watching the Packers. It was, and you look at the score, it's like they only won by 14. That's not a complete blowout. But the Rams weren't in that contest at all for the majority of it. So that was my takeaway from that contest. And then Tampa defeating New Orleans 30-20. Obviously, and I think with Tampa, this was one of those contests where, and this is where Brady is very good. And we all know the statistics and the numbers, the championships. And with Drew Brees retiring, he's probably going to have all-time passing yards and TDs because I think Brady's going to stick around for a year or two. And Brees just retired with some of those records, and he's not going to have them for very much longer, at least regular season-wise. But it was one of those contests where New Orleans kept turning the ball over with Brees, with interceptions, and Jared Cook caught the ball in the middle of the field. The Saints were up by 3, and all of a sudden he runs the ball and fumbles it. Tampa recovers it, scores. When you add all of that up, I think it was very smart for Tampa to run the ball and not rely so much on the pass and, get different guys involved in that. You saw Fournette. He had a good game, only 63 yards. Ronald Jones, 62 yards. And you're saying those aren't big efforts, but they kept control of the clock when they had the ball and took advantage of some short fields. Now, Brady did throw for 2 touchdown passes, 199 yards. But I thought it was a smart, efficient performance for the Bucks in that way. And then you look at New Orleans. All right, anyway, back to the Saints and what their struggles are. Yeah, I mean, Drew Brees, he's going to retire, and great career. Top 15 quarterback all time, top 20, some would say top 10. You can go down the list of all the guys. Tremendous career, though, for him. For me, maybe the best little man quarterback ever, as far as a guy 6'1" and under. I didn't see this from him. I remember watching him at Purdue. I know he took him to a Rose Bowl, the main appearance there, and I was like, okay, he's a solid quarterback. Drafted by the Chargers, had his ups and downs there in San Diego when they were still in San Diego. Towards Laberman, a playoff game, I remember towards the end of the regular season for the Chargers. And I was like, man, he's going to really struggle because he doesn't really throw that hard or throw the best, and he's a small guy. Where's he going to find his spot in the league? We all know the story by now. Went to visit the Dolphins when Nick Saban was the head coach. The doctors said he failed the physical in essence. He goes to New Orleans, passes the physical, obviously with another joined with Sean Payton, leads him to success. We all know the Katrina and everything, Hurricane Katrina that went down in New Orleans, his recovery, helping the city recover, ultimately winning a championship and becoming an all-time great, all the passing records that he's achieved. So he's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to get that gold jacket in 5 years. He's going to be on TV on your local station, on NBC, ABC, CBS. You're going to see a lot of Drew Brees over the next few years. Has that clean family image. He's a complete guy. But you can even see over the past few years he was regressing. And even in that contest against the Bucks, they just could not throw the ball down the field, and a lot of it had to do with Drew Brees. And really, the Bucks' defense was quite simple. We're going to take away the sideline. We're going to take away the deep pass. Or no, we're going to take away the middle, take away the slants, take away the deep pass. We're going to make you throw at the numbers. And he was not able to do that consistently in the contest. New Orleans' best play of the game offensively was a 56-yard touchdown pass by Jameis Winston, who came to the contest and threw the deep ball to Smith. Now you got to figure out with New Orleans, the Taysom Hill thing, and he wasn't even able to play this past contest, and they really did miss him because he gave them a lot of versatility on offense. Do you go with this Taysom QB experiment or make him a full-time guy? Winston, will he have? He may have options, even though it is very tough because I don't really see Winston starting anywhere necessarily. But he's been in New Orleans for a year, so at least you got a temperature of him and see how he works. But the Saints though, they have to figure out the quarterback, and they're about $90 million over the cap. They got to cut some starters or really make some trades or some adjustments to some major players. Obviously, you assume that Kamara, Michael Thomas would not be going anywhere like Cameron Jordan. You assume those type of guys would not be going anywhere. Lattimore, the cornerback. But outside of that, you're going to see some starters on both sides of the ball either be cut or traded, or they're going to figure out a lot. And they're going to have to, that's going to be a really long rebuild for the Saints. I think that their championship window is closed and over with, and they're really going to have to make a lot of adjustments and figure it out. But Tampa, that's a credit to them. You saw Devin White play the game of his career and just dominate on the defensive end. He had 10 tackles, or 11 tackles, I'm shorting him, pass deflection, interception. I think he recovered a fumble or forced a fumble. Just a tremendous day from him. And they go into that defense. If they can get their pass rush wasn't tremendous, wasn't really good against the Saints. But when you have guys like Sue and Pierre-Paul on that front and Shaq Barrett, if one of those guys get hot and could get into the backfield of Green Bay, they can make things intriguing in that contest. So we're looking forward to that. Going to the coaching hires, Arthur Smith, the former offensive coordinator for the Titans, is now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Solid move. Bring an offensive guy into the fold because you figure. I still think they may pick a quarterback in the first round of this upcoming draft. Remember, the Falcons have the 4th overall pick. And I know Matt Ryan is at least going to be with the team for another year. You're looking at just the finances of it. But you may look beyond that. You're going to have to groom a quarterback into that position. And Arthur Smith does a good job with that. And Tennessee's offense, we think so much about Derrick Henry, understandably so, because he's the best running back in the league and rushed for 2,000 yards. But he was able to get Ryan Tannehill to have his most efficient era of his career, including 2,000-yard receivers this past year for the Titans. So the offense has some balance to it as well. And he's from the Southeast, very familiar. His father owns FedEx or founded FedEx, so that's obviously a nice little notch for him in that regard, being a Southeastern guy. But I'm going to say with all these coaching hires, we don't know. Some guys get hired and you're like, why are they hired? And they end up being great coaches. Some guys on paper look very good, end up being under 500 and disastrous. But as far as the perceptions, or what I'm looking from Arthur Smith, solid hire overall. Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator, former defensive coordinator for the Rams, now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. You would have figured they may want to go to the offensive side of things with Justin Herbert, obviously the best rookie quarterback we've seen in the past few years, and one of the best rookie campaigns we've seen in a very long time, and their offensive talent. But they went into the same building because they both play at the same building in Los Angeles to get the DC of the Rams. I really would have liked to see a Bieniemy here in that regard. Obviously, you work with Mahomes and help develop him. I thought that that'd be a fun spot for him to go to. Dan Campbell, assistant coach for the Saints, the type of coach of tight ends, went to the Lions. It's a little bit of a tricky one. I like guys. I prefer guys who are coordinators on some level, offense or defense. Even the special teams coordinator. We've seen it with John Harbaugh with the Ravens, Super Bowl champion head coach for them. He started off as special teams coach. Even Joe Judge with the New York Giants. He was the special teams coordinator for the Patriots, and we've seen some good for him. It's okay first year for him, but to get a guy, assistant coach for tight ends, I don't really know about that hire overall with Dan Campbell. And the Lions, we talk about the Saints. They have a lot of, and they're not as in salary cap hell as much as the Saints are, but there are a lot of questions that have to be answered in Detroit, especially at quarterback. What do you do with Matt Stafford? So there's a lot that they have to figure out and to deal with. And the Eric Bieniemy thing, I know that I don't know if he's officially interviewed now with the Texans yet. And we've had conversations on the show before about the minority coaches and hirings and firings and what that all means. Here's the reality of it. If you buy any business, whatever industry that you're in, and you're part of it's very hard to tell someone who to hire or really who to fire when you own the team. And I think the NFL is doing a good job. And you have the Rooney Rule where you have to interview a minority candidate, and we've seen Salah, from get hired by New York Jets, and he's a minority. So you have to say it hasn't been complete lack of minority hirings in this coaching cycle. But you would like to see that more, but you also can't. If I own the team, I think it's where a lot of journalists and obviously, and I think honestly minorities when they these type of issues, they don't look at it from the ownership perspective. Obviously, they look at the numbers. There's only, and for college wise as well. Like if you look at college football, there's only X amount of head coaches. So we'll put the in major college football. So we'll put in the athletic directors in there. And as someone who's worked in sport and in that college athletics, and I've been around professional teams and leagues and just my experiences, you're not going to be able to tell these people who to hire and who to fire. And we know a lot of things, but we don't know everything. And that's where we have to be very careful. Now, there are some smoke. The shadiness does go with two things with Bieniemy. One, they'll say that he did not call the plays, or he doesn't call the plays for the Chiefs. Look, we all know Andy Reid is obviously a very strong offensive mind, one of the best to ever develop offense in the history of the league. Look it up. All of his stops, what he's done. But Bieniemy has a major part in that as well. He's a coordinator for that team. So you can't. And well, look at the other hires and the guys who don't quote unquote call the plays, and it's been all right. The second thing is that he doesn't interview well. I don't get that part of it as well. We're not in these interviews, and I think that there's some shadiness that goes on with that as well. I think there's some other agents of other coaches or coaches themselves talking to these media sources and saying, oh, we didn't interview well with that job so that their guy can get elevated. I think there's a lot of that going on as well. But I don't, you have to look at a lot more than, I'm sure there have been plenty of Hall of Fame coaches who had quote unquote bad interviews, were still hired and were very successful. And if he doesn't get hired this cycle, I don't know what to say. It's just the way things work out, I guess. I'm a little bit surprised because I thought that after last year, people were all mad about it that he would get hired this year, and he interviewed for I think every open position because I think the Texans finally came around and interviewed him, and so he. And I don't know if he interviewed with Philadelphia because the Eagles they kind of were late in the firing of Doug Peterson in the coaching cycle. But yeah, it's just if he does, it is interesting. You have to acknowledge it because he is probably the most high-profile candidate out there for all these positions, and he didn't get it. He hasn't, as we record right now, he has not been hired as a head coach. So you have to acknowledge it. I just did, and we'll see what happens over the next few weeks or a few days, really, because the hiring should be done by the end of this week because you have to put together staffs, you have to start developing your draft board and everything like that. And that should be done by this week. So we'll see what happens there. As we conclude the show with the miscellaneous department, I saw the Liverpool Manchester United 0-0 draw over this past weekend. It's interesting. We have so many high caliber, dynamic players on both sides of the ball. It ends up being like a kick fest, back and forth. I know Liverpool may have had a few more opportunities than Manchester, but you look at these two teams, and I think it was just two very conservative approaches. Two things. I know Liverpool's not scoring at the clips they have over the past few years with their front line of Salah, Sane, and Firmino. So that kind of hurts in that regard. United, I know Fernandes has been a nice revelation for them, but they still lack a lot of scoring as far as in the flow of play, especially with Rashford, who I'm very high on, have been high on. You don't get as much scoring consistently as you would like from him. But that game, I was very hyped for it. I watched it on the Peacock Network, which was very nice, by the way, because I've been kind of getting away from. The digital platforms. I'm very cool with them. Like I watch Netflix a lot. Obviously, I watch my New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE. All of those are strictly online and online based. I mean, you can put them on your TV if you want to and all that, but not your traditional sit down, get your remote, not traditional television as you would know it. So I'm okay with watching stuff on my computer screen or in that regard. But I tried out Peacock and I thought it was really good. It was just like a regular broadcast, and the flow was very good as far as the display of it, or presentation. But yeah, I think right now you have to watch out for Manchester City. They are slowly putting themselves in a very nice spot. Remember, we'll pull up the EPL table right now as we're talking because we can do that. Let's pull up the standings. Yeah, United is still in first at 37 points, but Leicester and Man City are at 35 points, and Liverpool's at 34. And City has a game at hand. I think they play today, I want to say, as we're recording the show. Now, granted, the thing about City, they have so many draws. They had 5 draws earlier on this year, and they just could not find a way to get those wins. But they are really rounding into form right now, and it's a bit very intriguing. And even Liverpool's at 34, Tottenham's at 33, and Everton's at 32. So I would say in the top 6 are only separated by 5 points, which is not that much. You have 2-3 weeks of wins, you might find yourself near the top of the table. But United being at the head of the table this far into the season, which was usually just a standard for them in the 90s and the early 2000s, even into the mid 2000s. They've had a drop off over the past few years, ever since the retirement of Ferguson as manager, obviously. But this is a very good situation. You've seen Paul Pogba play a lot more, which is good. You never know with him. He might be transfer window. He might be out of there in the next few weeks, but I don't think he's going to be out there. Maybe at the end of the season. But it's good to see him back onto the field and just focus on that. And he adds some good dynamic aspects to it. But I'm very intrigued by this EPL table because the past few years we've seen Manchester City, and Liverpool jump out to big starts and big leads, and it's been between those two teams, and that's great. But to have 3 or 4 teams involved as we record this show in mid-January, that's a good thing. I've seen James Harden with the Nets. As I said in the last show, I went off on him about the lack of professionalism. I still stand by those thoughts. But when he's on the court and he's motivated and ready to play, he's still a top 5 player in the entire league. I mean, the guy is special. Triple-double in his first contest with the Nets. I saw the game last night against Milwaukee. Him and Durant are a nice combination, nice dynamic. When Kyrie Irving returns, whenever it is, and now he's not returned. And this was what I was saying as well, because I was seeing reports on Sunday or even Monday morning. Oh yeah, he's slated to play back on Monday. No, no, no. He has to go through protocol, and no, he's not going to be out for like 2 months. I think he just has to be in quarantine and go through the process of being back acclimated to the team for the next probably 7 to 10 days. But when he comes back, it's obviously having too much talent. You rather have that than no talent at all, and so that's not a problem. But Durant's cool. Durant's going to score 25 to 30 points every night easily, just going about his business. But I do look at Harden and Kyrie, who's going to handle the ball in certain situations, who has control. Like one of them's going to have to take a step back. And now the offense flows enough. I think all three of them can average 20 to 25 points, and that should keep them relatively happy as far as the points go. But I think that Harden's really a better point guard than Kyrie as far as distributing the ball, handling the ball. But can Kyrie play off the ball? They can figure all of that out. But we see with Harden and Durant, that's a nice combination that they have going right now. But I also think with the Nets, training away all those guys and their injuries with Trey Wayne Levert, and prayers to him because he was supposed to be playing with the Pacers, but they did gets his physical, found a mass in his kidney. Man, prayers up to him that works out for him, and he can not only be back as a healthy player, but just as a healthy human being. But you traded away him, who was a major scorer off the bench for you. You trade away, Dinwiddie's out with an injury, and you trade away Jared Allen, who was and look, DeAndre Jordan has had a solid career, but if you expect him to play 30 to 35 minutes as your post player, that's a recipe for not very good things. So I think I'm concerned about the lack of depth for the Nets, and they became very small with the trade of Harden, because I think teams like Philadelphia, Boston, and then we get to if they make it to the finals, a team like the Lakers can really be physical against them. But I mean, when you get to that point, they'll figure it out. But I've been seeing those contests, and that's been intriguing to me. And I'm trying to think of any other sports topics that I need to touch on. Oh yes, Tennessee fired Jeremy Pruitt from the football head coach. They have a lot of issues going on in Tennessee. I think it goes beyond Jeremy Pruitt. When they're doing an internal investigation and trying to make decisions, you combine that with the NCAA is going to be on them probably in the next few months. Probation's a possibility, loss of scholarships. There's already been dissension with some of their top players, including Harrison Bailey from Marietta, Georgia, very close to us, who was a rookie freshman quarterback for the team. They started multiple starting quarterbacks this year. No one was happy. Bailey could be out of there in the very near future, especially with this firing. So now what do you do at quarterback? There's a lot going on with that Tennessee program. Reality has to be that they are third best team in the SEC East alone. Florida and Georgia have lapped them in that division, and that doesn't even include going over to the West. They got to play Alabama every year, and that's a loss in the loss in the docket every year. Seems like it's been since Saban has been there. They have a lot to figure out and a lot to deal with there. Firing Pruitt in this juncture of the year is not good. But yeah, we'll see what happens there with Tennessee and what's going on there. And that concludes today's show. Thanks for listening to our podcast. And as always, go to thesportsinquirer.net for everything that you need in relation to the show. You also go to our Twitter and Instagram pages, Sports Inquirer, that's all one word. And you can go to our Facebook pages and subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcast, and iTunes. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.